Hi, I'm Dean Sikes. I founded an organization called You Matter. And since January 1st, 1993, I've been on the road speaking in high schools. Usually when we do a high school assembly, the students come into an arena, into a theater, into a gymnasium. Today, we're coming to you. Wherever you're watching this, we just want you to know how grateful we are for the opportunity to bring this message to you. It's a message that I've shared with over 2.5 million students at live events, over 4,500 times in 8 nations of the world. So wherever you're watching today, from my heart to yours, I really hope you lock in with me. And maybe in some of the story of my life that I'm going to share with you today, maybe some of the story of your life, there'll be some intersecting points. I believe all of us have defining moments, those moments that truly define our life. And those defining moments are what I'm going to talk about today. When I was 7 years old, my first defining moment was when I made what I call the choice of a lifetime. I remember it was a Saturday afternoon. I was outside playing football with my best friend, Chris Frank. An associate pastor from the church we attended came to our home. I was invited into our home. My mom and dad were there. I prayed a prayer. My life changed. I made what I call the choice of a lifetime. And I went outside and I said to Chris, "Hey, Chris, I've just made this decision. Have you ever made that decision?" He goes, "What are you talking about?" And I shut down. And I just lived life, for the next 8 years. Now at 15 years old, I was having it was a truly traumatic moment. What is trauma? Trauma is what happened to you and I that should have never happened, but it's also what did not happen to us that should have happened. Trauma is real. And I experienced some severe trauma at 15. On a Wednesday afternoon, around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I was sexually abused. And 60 seconds changed the trajectory of my life. And maybe you just kind of just gulped when you heard that I was sexually abused. Maybe you know what that feels like. Maybe you know what that experience is really like. Here's one of the greatest lessons I've ever learned, and I've shared it with multiplied millions of people. And now today I get to share it with you. If you and I do not deal with our emotions will deal with us. They don't just magically disappear. On the day that I was sexually abused, I remember I went to church that night afterwards. It was Wednesday night, and on Wednesdays we went to church. And I went home that night after church, and I looked in the mirror. And when I looked in that mirror, I saw someone who was broken and full of shame. To be honest, I didn't like what I saw. And I made a vow. I'll never tell anybody what happened to me. And I made a commitment. I'll never get hurt like that again. And I just shut down. I shut down emotionally. Sure, I still kept growing. I was developing. I was, living a life. But my emotions shut down. They just stopped. I was incapable of feeling anything. Maybe you know what that feels like. At 17 years old, I'd lived 2 years with the secret of having been abused. And at 17, I failed PE, not because I wasn't athletic. I played quarterback, taught tennis, and played golf. I failed PE because I refused to dress out in my class. I wasn't going to get hurt again. My coach says, "Dean, if you don't dress out, I'm going to give you the F that you will earn. And if you get an F in my class, it's going on your report card, and your parents have to sign the report cards at our school." I said, "Coach, I'm fine. I'm not going to dress out." He goes, "Dean, I don't understand this." I said, "Coach, I'm just not going to do it." And I didn't. And I got the F. And I went home. And you have to understand, at that point in my life, my drug of choice was lying. I lied more than I ever told the truth. I lied so much you had to catch me telling the truth. Why did I lie? Because I didn't like me. And if I didn't like me, there's no way you're going to like me. So let me create this image of someone you're going to like. And it worked. I became very popular. I was the editor of the school newspaper, president of the pep club. I stage managed all the productions at our school. I was involved in everything, but I knew no one. I didn't let anyone get close to me. Because if you got close to me, you were going to hurt me. That was the lie that I kept hearing. Again, maybe you can relate. I went home that day when I failed PE, and my dad said, "Dean, let me see your report card, algebra, English, history, civics, PE. Dean, there's no way to fail PE. Here comes the lie." But I couldn't lie. I heard myself saying, "Dad, there's a way to fail PE." "Dean, are you telling me that you failed the easiest class you're ever going to take?" "Yes, sir." "You want to talk about it?" "No, sir." "Let's talk about it." "Yes, sir." I learned 2 lessons. One, I never again failed PE. And the more important lesson that I've shared from South Africa to South Australia to Russia to England to all over America, down to the Caymans, Eleuthera, Jamaica, all over. If you and I do not pay the price, we will pay a price. There are no free lunches. Everything you do is a seed in life. And that seed's going to produce a harvest, good or bad. Good seeds, good harvest. Bad seeds, bad harvest. This isn't rocket science. I keep living life with this horrible, horrific secret on the inside of me. The abuse was there. The pain was there. The emotional, the crippled way that I lived life as an emotionally damaged individual, I couldn't even put words to. And people closest to me realized something's just not right, but they never knew what it was. 18 and 19, lying so much. Wasn't interested in just everyday life. I was always living in the future. There's a challenge, see, because yesterday's forever gone. Tomorrow's not promised to anyone. We've been given this gift called today. And if you're always planning for the future and never living in the now, you miss out on this journey we know is life. 21 years old, I had whatever society says makes you, I guess, a little successful. I worked for a company. We had a couple of airplanes, a condo in Florida. I was dating great looking girls. I was having lots of fun. We had money, all this stuff. But the reality was the stuff had me. And you can gain everything that society says makes you successful. And if you don't really have it right on the inside, if you're not right in here, you're in trouble. That was me. I was 21 years old. I had lived now, 6 years, having never told anybody I'd been sexually abused. That's like compounding interest. It's like if you and I had a trash can right here today, and I just kept putting trash in it, we kept putting trash in it, we kept pushing the trash down and kept pushing the trash down. Eventually, common sense tells us that if we keep doing that, eventually what's going to happen? The trash can's going to overflow. Your heart, my heart, no different. If we just keep pushing the emotion down, we just keep pushing it down, we're not going to deal with it. Well, guess what? There will be a day we'll have such an overflow of those emotions, we will deal with it, because at the end of the day, there's no way not to deal with it. Eventually, our heart has to be dealt with. 21 years old, I had not dealt with it. I'd played the game. I'd lied so much. I'd created this image that everybody seemed to like on the periphery or the outside, but no one ever got close. There was no intimacy in my life whatsoever, not even with God. And so one day, because I was missing out on all that I was missing out on, and I was so miserable, and I couldn't figure out, well, girls don't fulfill me, money doesn't fulfill me, jet airplanes don't fulfill me, being successful in life isn't fulfilled. What do I have to do? And suddenly, I said a very simple prayer one day, and it went just like this. Hey, God, it's me. I don't think you're real. If you've got a plan for my life, and if you are real, prove it. I call it my prove it prayer. It was full of arrogance. There was no compassion in my heart. There was no realness in my heart. And it was so fake, I forgot I prayed the prayer. But 2 weeks later, sitting in my office, I was dialing the phone, and off behind me to my left, I heard someone in my office say, call mom. I swung around, saw no one, but the hair on the back of my ear knew, call mom. And I dialed my parents' phone number. Her phone rang 7 times, and on the 8th ring, mom answered the phone. And when she said hello, her voice was slurred. She was disoriented. I knew instantly something was terribly wrong. For in that moment in time when God, who is real, spoke to me and said, call mom, and I did, hear me, my mom was attempting suicide. She was dying. Whether she's your best friend or your worst enemy, somebody you see 3 times a day or 3 times a year, when you're here and 25 minutes away on the other end of the telephone line, the lady who gave birth to you is literally dying. That, my friend, will change your life. It becomes what? A defining moment. Moments that define your life. I ran out of my office, jumped in my car, drove up Interstate 75, prayed a simple prayer. God, I can't save my mom, but you can. As I drove into my parents' neighborhood, their home looked fine. From the inside out, however, my mom was dying. Do you know how many millions of people I've spoken with at live events who from the outside in appear to have it all together, but from the inside out, they're in their own private war? Maybe you can relate to that. Maybe you are sitting there today watching this going, man, you are telling my story in my own version. As I'm driving my mom to the hospital, she looks over at me and she says, Dean, I can't be dying. I said, Mom, you're not going to die, but you're going to have to choose to live. The most important word in that sentence, my friend, is not live, it's choose. Choices create circumstances. I get her to a hospital. A doctor literally throws me against the wall, rushes her into the emergency room. My dad's now there, family and friends have arrived. And 45 minutes later, this ER doctor walks over to my dad. This doctor has the most bewildered look on his face. And he says this, I'll never forget it. He goes, Mr. Sikes, there's no medical reason to tell you what I'm getting ready to tell you. It's a miracle of God. Your wife is alive. She's fine. We're getting ready to release her. You can go see her. I heard miracle, and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. My dad said, do you want to go see your mom? I said, no, sir. He goes, I understand. I thought, no, you don't. 2 hours ago, I'm sitting in my office dialing, talking, literally doing business. I get this prompting. I hear this voice, call mom. I do so. She's trying to end her life. I get her to a hospital. Now we got a doctor with 4 years of college, 4 years of med school, 2 years of residency, years of practicing medicine, who now says to you, he didn't save her. It's a miracle of God. No, Dad, I'm going for a walk. And I went for a walk, and I could take you to the spot in Park Ridge Hospital where I leaned against this long corridor, and I had an encounter. See, my plan at that point was I was going to, and just shortly thereafter, my plan was to go into politics, run for the Tennessee legislature at 21 years old, be in the U.S. Congress at 25, run for the U.S. Senate at 30, and be governor of Tennessee at 36. That was my plan. The best-selling book of all time says that man plans his ways, but it's God who directs our steps. That wasn't God's plan for my life. And on that particular day, standing in that long corridor of Park Ridge Hospital, my life changed. And I came to a real sweet reality that my purpose in life, just like your purpose in your life, is not ours to decide, it's ours to discover. Whatever you're going to do in life, whatever your calling is, whatever your purpose is, that's not for you to decide. It's for you to discover. And it's in that discovery that you will come into this journey that is the journey of a lifetime. Because when you actually discover why you are here and why your life matters, what I do in life does not get me out of bed in the morning. Why I do it catapults me out of bed every single day. I get to do this. I don't know where you're watching this today. I don't know what planet, I don't know where you are. You're on planet Earth somewhere. But today, we're connecting. And I'm getting to share a message with you that I get to share with teenagers literally from all walks of life. On that particular day when my mom attempted suicide, the choice I made was, it's time to get serious. It's time for me to take life serious and stop making it all about me. And I turned my focus outward and I began to look at what could my story maybe be used to do that would bring hope to people like you, teenagers. There was no real agenda other than I just want to give people hope. And you know what happened? Doors started opening. Doors, literally. I've spoken in Australia. All the places I've mentioned. All those students who have grabbed the message and who have run with the truth contained within this message. That's why I do this. A lot of what I'm sharing with you right now, I recently shared at a school. And let's just say that for the sake of this time together, that the young man's name is John. John walks down this long theater, kind of like the theater that I'm in today, and he walks down, he's got 7 or 8 guys behind him. And I go, John, you are a leader. He goes, how do you know that, sir? I go, look over your shoulder. You want to know the fail-proof way to know if you truly are leading? Look over your shoulder. Is anybody following? John kind of smiled. He goes, yes, sir, I'm the quarterback of the football team, and these are all guys who play on the team with me. I said, man, that's great. He looks at these 7 or 8 guys, goes, I need to talk to this speaker. I'll catch you at lunch. And these 7 or 8 guys turned around and walked away. So now John and I are in this big theater by ourselves. And he goes, I really enjoyed your assembly today. I said, man, thank you. I always appreciate that. And he goes, can I tell you some of my story? I said, love to. Now, why is that important to bring up? Because teenagers today, while you may not want to speak with your parents or to an adult or to an authority figure in your life, you may not want to, but I can promise you this, today's teenagers desperately need to be seen and desperately need to be heard, because if you do not feel seen and you do not feel heard, you will by default go down this journey that leads to a very dark place called suicide. Well, I'm not suicidal. I get that. Why does a person feel like suicide is the only answer, the only remaining answer? Because they've lost what I call hope. And if you lose hope and you have so much pain on the inside, that's where it leads. I've talked to too many students who've told me their stories after our assemblies. I speak from experience. John and I began to talk. He goes, you know those 3 questions you asked? And at every assembly, I asked 3 questions. Here they are. Is there someone in your life that you need to forgive? Do you feel like you've been rejected? And is suicide a real option? I go, yeah, I know the questions. He goes, I need to be real honest with you. I go, okay, what? He goes, I raised my hand for all 3. I said, John, if you don't mind, unpack your life a little bit. Tell me about your life. So he goes, well, I've told you I play quarterback. We're playing for the state championship this Friday night. I think we're going to win. He said, I've got a 3.8 GPA. I come from a really great family. I go to a local church. I'm involved in the youth group, heavily involved, actually. I'm dating a girl here at school. She's involved in the same youth group. It's a very healthy relationship. We're not messing up. I said, John, 3.8 GPA, great looking girlfriend, healthy relationship. You're in church. You got to come from a good family. You're playing for the state championship in a few days. I can understand raising your hand. I think we all raise our hands that we need to forgive somebody who's hurt us. And maybe even raise my hand over, you feel like you've been rejected. But suicide? John, can you help me understand that? And John looks at me and he's got these big crocodile tears coming down his face now. Now I'm understanding better why he didn't want his buddies there, because he knew what he was getting ready to tell me. He knew what he wanted to talk about. He knew that he needed to be heard and seen. He goes, Dean, you cannot imagine the life I live with the pressure to perform every single day. I said, tell me about it. He says, Dean, it's performance-based living. My whole life is a performance. And the pressure to meet these expectations is so high. I said, well, what if we could take that pressure away from you? What if you got the revelation, the enlightenment, that your life matters not because of what you do, but because you're breathing? He went, whew, that would be really good. He says, can I give you something? I said, sure. He goes, but before I do, I want to ask you. I go, ask anything you want to ask. Do you really believe that my life matters? I go, John, I don't just believe it. I know it. Because you see, in life, you and I will go from thinking about something to believing something to knowing something. I know he matters. I know you matter. But you don't know me. You don't know what I've done. You have no, doesn't matter. You matter. Why? You're breathing. It's just that simple. You see, you and I, John, we were all created on purpose and with purpose and for purpose, and there's a reason we are here. God didn't need your help getting into this journey we know as life, and he sure doesn't need your help getting out of it. When it's your time to go, you'll go. That's the conversation John and I are having as he says, can I give you something? I go, yes. And out of his pocket, he pulls this. This is a 12-gauge shotgun shell. And he looked at me with those tears streaming down his face, and he says, Dean, today at 3:15, I was going to the 50-yard line to end my life. But you told me that my life matters. And I choose to believe that. Do you know why he believed that? I hope the same reason you believe it. Because it's the truth. And here's the coolest thing about truth. Truth never changes. It's always the same. I was about to learn that lesson myself. Come forward many years. Traveling the world, speaking to multiplied millions of students, married, 3 kids, just living life. But yet I had never, ever, ever told anyone what happened to me when I was 15. And again, maybe you can relate to that. Maybe you've got a secret so deeply tucked away in the corner of your heart that nobody knows it, and people would be astonished to know that, the truth of what you're hiding. If that's you, buckle in, because here's where it changes. 22 years after I'd been sexually abused, my wife had asked me to go to Home Depot. So I took 2 of our 3 kids, went to Home Depot. I had each child on either side of me holding their hands, walking down aisle 21, just having a great time. Turned right, and I walked right into the person, literally walked right into the person who 22 years earlier had sexually abused me. My life unraveled. Remember what I said earlier? If you don't deal with your emotions will deal with you. You know why I can say that with such profound confidence? I've got that t-shirt. I got that sweatshirt. I know it's real. I didn't speak to this person. I squeezed my kids' hands so tightly they both screamed, Dad! Turned around, walked out, went home. My wife said, what's wrong? I said, not right now. Put our kids to bed, and I invited my wife out on our front porch. And I said, Lori, I'm going to tell you something that I've never had the guts to tell anybody else. But 22 years ago, I was sexually abused. And a few minutes ago at Home Depot, I ran into that person. I'll never forget her face. Her eyes filled with tears. She took 2 steps backward. She says, Dean, honey, everything makes sense now. We've got to get you help. I heard that sentence, we've got to get you help. Pride lunged in front of me, just lunged out of me. Nope, not doing that. Nope, I'm fine. She says, you're not fine. She said, everything makes sense, Dean. You're not fine. We've got it. I said, sweetheart, I'm not going to a counselor. She says, if you got diagnosed with a real serious sickness, would you go to a doctor? Well, sure. No different. We're going. And I'm so glad that she insisted, because even as resistant as I was to going, when I was led to the right counselor, he and I sat down, and he says, I'm aware of what you do in life. I appreciate all the assemblies that you do. He said, but let's make a deal. Let's not talk about what you do. I said, well, what are we going to talk about then? He goes, we're going to talk about you. I said, I don't want to talk about me. That's going to get real uncomfortable really fast. He said, yeah. I said, well, what would that conversation look like, Doc? He goes, well, you would do all the talking, and I would do all the listening, and every now and then I would throw you a question. That conversation began that day, and it lasted for 11 years. And today on my phone, I carry 11 years of notes that I took. And I'm so grateful for those notes, because every now and then I go back and I just reread all of them. And it reminds me, it takes me back to a place in time where I was broken. And I needed somebody who was a lot better than me to help me. Somewhere along those 11 years, I was asked this question: Dean, will you forgive the person who sexually abused you? My immediate response was, no, I won't. They said, why? I said, it's not fair. I didn't do anything wrong. And yet what they did to me has so affected my life that I'm sitting in a counselor's office trying to unpack it and get healed from it. So no, I'm not forgiving at all. You know why? It's not fair. Next question was a question that changed my life. Again, was the cross fair? Why'd you have to go there? Took me 3 or 4 days. I knew the answer. I knew what I was supposed to do, just like you. You know what the answer is when you're supposed to do something, right? But for me, I made the choice. I will forgive. Students ask me, well, did you go to the person? No. I did it the way I was led to do it. But from my heart, I truly forgave. And I would love to tell you that on the day that I forgave, that everything changed, that my life was totally healed. My emotions were just put back together. And I was the authentic version of myself, and life became just glorious that day. It didn't happen at all. I felt nothing different. I felt stupid. But faith isn't about feelings. Faith, my friend, is about what? Obedience. I just kept saying, I would just be going along in life, be traveling somewhere to speak. I go, man, I just forgive. I just forgive. My heart's healed. I'm doing better. I'm going to get there. And I started sharing that story over and over. And one day I woke up. I don't know where I was, but I woke up. And you know what? I was free. Because forgiveness brings freedom. I don't want you to miss this. This is real important. What you say, I'll never do. Be cautious with that sentence. When I was 15 years old, what did I say? I will never tell anyone what happened to me. Today, and every single day of the year, year after year after year, whether through social media, through television, through a book I've written, through an assembly like this, every single day of the year, someone hears me say, when I was 15 years old, I was sexually abused. 22 years later, I ran into the person. 11 years of counseling later, I forgave the person. When I forgave, I got free. What's the point? What you and I overcome in our life will become our platform. I overcame that which tried to take me out, and it became the platform that launched a movement called You Matter. Which begs the question, what are you in the process of overcoming, or what will you in the future overcome that will become the platform from which you are able to successfully accomplish the one thing that you were put on the earth to do? You're not deciding this, you're discovering this. That's important to remember. So let's bring all this in to you and I right now. Forgiveness is a big deal. The second question that I asked John and the students that I'm getting ready to ask you, it has to do with rejection. What is rejection? It's being totally, completely, genuinely just not accepted. 6 months before my mom died, she called me on one Saturday morning about 8:30 in the morning. She says, Dean, I want to tell you something. When you were 4.5 years old, I emotionally abandoned you. You and I do not have a relationship. You know it. I know it. Stop acting like we do. And she hung up. That's rejection. And when she hung up, I was dumbfounded. Like, what did I do at 4.5 that caused my mom to just emotionally abandon? What did I do? Then I realized the second greatest commandment is what? love your neighbor as yourself. If I don't love me, I can't love you. I can't give you something I don't have. I can't teach you something I've not been taught. So when my mom rejected me, was it because of me or was it because of her? She wasn't a bad person. She just couldn't give what she didn't have. But rejection is painful. Rejection is real. And that rejection took a deep rooted, it went down deep into my heart. And maybe you know what that feels like. But I'm thrilled to share with you that on the other side of rejection is a word called accepted. And soon I'm going to show you how you can begin a journey, if you're not already on it, to move from rejection to accepted. And then there's suicide. Suicide is an unimaginable, painful, lonely, isolating journey. And I deal with it every day on the road with students who come from all walks of life. In America, every day, 5,600 teenagers attempt suicide. Let me paint a visual for you. In an arena that seats 12,000 people, that arena would fill up every 2.5 days with teenagers who in the previous 60 hours bought the lie that their death was a better choice than their life. We're on this journey, if you will, to help teenagers understand suicide's not the answer. Remember, you were created on purpose, with purpose, and for purpose. We need you. If you weren't here, we would all be missing someone so very special. You bring something to the table. Just like John, when he raised his hand for those 3 questions, I'm going to ask you 3 questions today. Well, we're not face to face. You may be in a big assembly hall. You might be in a classroom. You might be in your bedroom. You might be out taking a walk and just watching on your phone. Wherever you are, I'm going to ask you 3 questions that I believe are very worthy of your consideration. 1, is there someone in your life that's really hurt you? Maybe it's a mom or dad. Maybe it's a brother or sister, a grandparent, aunt, uncle. Maybe it's a coach. Maybe it's your best friend, your girlfriend, boy. Someone's really hurt you. And maybe in our time together, you've caught a little something that makes you think, maybe, just maybe I should forgive. Well, listen, yes, you should. Yeah, but what they did to me, listen, that's your story. I get it. I know it from my perspective. So many students walk up to me after assemblies and they've got tears in their eyes. They're going, I chose to forgive. So I'm going to ask you today, if there's someone in your life that you really know you're supposed to forgive, remember, this isn't about necessarily them getting free from anything they've done. This is about you getting free, period. I ask people to raise their hand. Yeah, there's someone I need to forgive. Number 2, rejection. Maybe you know the pain of rejection and you would do almost anything to get to that place I called accepted. If that's you, yeah. In a minute, I'm going to show you how you can get a book that I've written called You Matter. Doesn't cost you anything, but in the book, I not only tell you that you matter, I tell you why you matter, and I help you walk from rejection to accepted. It's a pretty cool book, and thousands of people have gotten their copies. I want you to have yours. And then 3rd, suicide. If you have the unimaginable, courageous guts to acknowledge that, yes, suicide is an option for me, listen, your life matters, and we need you. I want you to understand that if my hand is a mirror, do you see the truth when you look in that mirror? Because that, my friend, remember what truth does? It sets people free. When you get the revelation, that enlightenment, that acknowledgement that, oh, yeah, I do matter, suicide won't be an option. I'm so grateful we've had our time together today. I hope in our time together you have caught some truth that maybe, just maybe, will change the remainder of your life. Remember, God loves you. There's a dynamic purpose for your life. And because you're breathing, you matter. Before you go, I need to give you something. Not just words, not just a feeling, something real. Something that you can do right now. Take out your phone, scan the QR code on the screen, or click the link below. That one link gives you everything. A free copy of my book, You Matter. A pledge card. It's a commitment to yourself that your life matters and that you won't carry this alone. And the Hope website, resources, support, and help whenever you need it. It's all there. One click. But there's one more thing, and this is the big one. Talk with someone. You know, I stayed silent for 22 years and it almost killed me. Don't do what I did. Find one person, a teacher, a parent, a pastor, a coach, someone that you trust. You don't have to tell them everything. Just start the conversation. You know, asking for help isn't weakness. I believe it's the bravest thing that you can do. Why? Because you matter, and your story isn't over. Thanks for choosing hope.